Hey there, I'm Kelly Sienkowski with Potomac Local News, and we're shining the spotlight on our local Board of Supervisors election. With me today is Bart Randall. Bart, how's your morning going so far?
Yeah, it's going great, Kelly. I'd like to thank you and the Potomac Local News for having me here this morning and allowing me to participate in this question and answer and get some things taken care of.
We're happy to chat with you. So, Bart, can you tell me a little bit about you?
Sure. My wife and I have been in Stafford County for 19 years. I'm a retired Master Chief working in the nuclear community for the United States Navy. My last tour brought me here, and then we decided to just stay here. We liked it so much in Stafford, we decided to stay here. I currently work for the Coast Guard as an acquisition manager for the National Security Cutter Program at Coast Guard headquarters. I have two adult children. One of them is a police officer up north, and one of them is a doctoral. She's got her doctorate in working in refugee resettlement in Wilmington, North Carolina. I have one granddaughter. She's 10, the love of our life, and so we really appreciate being able to spend time with her. If you don't see me at home or working, or campaigning at this point in time, I normally am on the golf course. I'm a big golfer and love to golf, and that's my kind of get away from things type environment or type activity. So other than that, that's about all I have to offer. Thank you.
You're running for the Garrisonville District.
And we are running as part of the Garrisonville District. That's correct.
Is this your first time stepping into politics or the general mode of campaigning and elections?
I have been engaged. I ran a couple of times for the school board once, for the Board of Supervisors last in 2021. I've been pretty active in the county, following things and being part of things for the last several years. So I feel like I've got a little bit of exposure to what the county goes through and the process that the county has. Of course, I'm not behind the Iron Curtain per se, so I don't know all of the little workings behind the scenes. But for the most part, I attend meetings. I go out and I get involved with things. I'm on the advisory committee, capital improvement plan advisory committee for the schools. I've been a part of that in the leadership positions for the last 2 years. I currently am a member of the board of directors for S.E.R.V.E, our food pantry in the county. And so I've been doing that for the last year and a half. And so I've been doing these things to stay involved in the county and kind of help as much as I can. I've always been someone who likes to serve and help others. And so these are two ways I can do that and help the county at the same time.
What we're going to do for our viewers at home, what we're doing is we're asking all of our candidates for the Board of Supervisors to answer the same 5 questions. So we're going to jump into that part. So first,
Okay.
Projects like Buc-ee's and these data centers are stirring up some strong reaction from our residents. How would you balance economic development while still, how would you balance economic development and the concerns that residents have about the environment, traffic, and the overall quality of life?
Well, so let me give you a more of a general thing. I hesitate to take a firm stance on Buc-ee's. I think my opponent has already done that, which I think is potentially could be an issue to the county. I won't take a public stance on Buc-ee's at all. I do think that the concerns of the county and the residents locally are paramount. They do have some valid concerns about the traffic and the things that would be going on. I mean, my wife and I went to Buc-ee's. We just came back from Florida, and we went to Buc-ee's, and it's great where it's at in Florida or in South Carolina. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of questions. Buc-ee's is going in front of the Planning Commission, I believe, in September, and it will be there where we have a first chance as residents, as outsiders per se, to see what they've been able to decide with VDOT and those types of things and the packages they've been able to put together to present. Data centers, I'm really torn. I know we need the revenue, but I'm concerned Initially, the board had performance standards that were what I would call very liberal, very data center friendly. And my personal feeling is they didn't do a very good job with their homework and figuring out what the best standards were that would help the residents of our county. And so right now, the Planning Commission is redoing those standards. They're going to vote on them in August. But again, we have so many that have just thrown their applications to the county, and then the decision will be whether or not to grandfather those in. Do we allow them to continue to do it under the old standards and not the new standards? So while I think that the data centers could add some revenue that is desperately needed, putting a data center, right on Courthouse Road, for example, is not something that we as a county should want. Let's put them in the way back areas. Let's get them out of the way. Let's get them out of sight. Let's put a 300-foot natural buffer between houses and the data centers. Let's do some common sense things that while we could use the revenue, we don't want them to impact or negatively impact or minimally impact our residents. And I'm not sure that's been taken too much into consideration. And so I commit when I'm elected to making sure that I will do everything I can to help make Stafford County and the impacts to Stafford County as low as possible. Now, let me go back. Economic development. We have to have economic development. Right now, the break in our revenue is about 70% on residents and about 20% on businesses. Well, that's not sustainable. Yet, for the last 15, 20 years, there hasn't been really a big push for economic development in our county. And so we are where we are. And one of the things I will also commit to is making Stafford County more business friendly and doing all we can, removing roadblocks, removing red tape, removing cumbersome practices that we have in the county to ensure that businesses have an easier path to coming to Stafford, building in Stafford, moving into Stafford, and operating in Stafford. I just don't see that now, and we have indications as we see as businesses start and then they can't finish, or they clear the land and then they don't do anything with it throughout Stafford. But those are the type of things that we need to fix. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Bart. Our next question is, with Stafford's $1 billion budget and the continued growth of the county, how would you ensure that the county is spending wisely with supporting the infrastructure and the services the county offers without overspending or overbuilding?
So that's a good question. And this is really the heart of how you run a business. And that's what Stafford County is. Stafford County is a $1 billion business. You think about where that money comes from, just so everybody's aware, of that $1 billion, about $230 million of that comes from the state and federal government that's designed strictly for the schools. They're really just a pass-through because the county and the state is the Dillon Rule state, and the Board of Supervisors are the only revenue gathering group, generating group. All the money has to go through them. So although it is $1 billion, 230 of that is directly for the schools. So the $780 million, it has to be done. We were doing some research, and just so everybody's also aware, in 2023, 3 years ago, in 2022, we had a $451 million. And now we have 780. And I'm taking the state and federal school money out. So we went from 451 to $750 million, almost $300 million increase in the last 4 years in our county. And so you ask, where did the money get spent? What are we doing with it? and you think, wow, I went from 451 and I've had about a 70% increase in my revenue in 4 years. Am I seeing what I need to be seen? Am I getting the benefits of that? And I don't know, right? I don't see all of the little ways that we spend money, but I do think that there needs to be a better way of showing to our residents how they're benefiting from this increase in funds. Do we have a dedicated amount that's going to go to parks and rec every year so we can start doing things for our residents? Do we have, I want to see that. I want to know that, yes, it's great that we're building roads. The other thing is, we have, oh gosh, I think it's about $800 million in debt that we have in the county, which is, I mean, we bring in $780 million and we have $800 million in debt. We have just as much debt as our revenue, which is ridiculous, right? We talk about fiscal responsibility, and then nobody ever talks about how much debt we've accrued over the last 20 years and how much debt we've actually paid back in the last 20 years, right? If you ask that, would they put that together for us? I don't know. That paints a pretty bad picture, right? But anyway, $800 million. And so, how much of that $300 million that we've gotten over the last 4 years has gone to reducing our debt? Is it just a minimal, or have we taken significant steps to try to significantly reduce that? Because, fiscal responsibility starts with getting out of debt. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Bart. Our next question is about kind of public engagement. With the recent board decisions about zoning and school funding and the big data center projects, they've gotten a lot of strong public feedback. So what would be your approach to making sure that residents are heard and included in the process?
You've touched on my biggest campaign issues that I talk about. You will see it on all of my information about public service and not politics. That we need to be, as elected officials, more public servants and less politicians. As I tell people, there should be more public service in politics and less politics in public service. And that's really how we need to focus on that. And one of the things is, the Chairman Diggs has started, but I am fully committed to having town halls. I would do it. He does it at a pretty big level, like going to schools and going and I would do it at a much lower level sometimes, just at the library. Hey, I'm going to be at the library on this night from 6 to 8. It's going to be an open format. If you're there, we'll talk. If I'm sitting by myself, then I'll sit by myself and read a book for 2 hours. Right? We don't see that. We don't have that flexibility, especially in the Garrisonville district. I'm not sure we have much public access to our elected official. It's really hard when your elected official votes a certain way and doesn't give an explanation to it. When they make decisions that you're like, did you get input at all from anybody about this? How do we show transparency? How do we show accountability? When we're talking about Garrisonville, we have all of a sudden, out of the blue, our elected official decided that she wanted to build a dog park right next to Hampton Oaks Elementary School. Didn't tell anybody, didn't find out about it, didn't. And so what happened is it gets to our school board representative, and she's like, what? Called the HOA. The HOA didn't know anything about it, and it was a complete secret to anybody in the county, except to her and to the to the CIP group, about we're going to have a dog park right next to Hampton Oaks Elementary School. What's transparent about that? and yet nobody's ever held her accountable. She's never stood up and said, yeah, I made a mistake. That's my bad. I should never have done that. I should have been talking to people. There's no accountability there. And so public service, transparency, accountability, talking to people, being available to people, opening up, and like I said, having smaller town halls. We'll do the big ones, of course, but the smaller town halls where just one-on-one type thing would be available is really the focus on communicating and relating to the constituents in the Garrisonville district.
The next question, you kind of touched on it, but we're talking about as development continues, how would you work to protect parks, green space, and some of the county's character for the future generations?
So that's a great point. Stafford has such a rural history that it's just fantastic, right? One of the first things that I would do is totally minimize opportunities to expand the urban services area. Urban services area being where there's county water and sewer available. And it goes all the way down the 95 corridor, and what happens is that if we keep the urban services area and then we keep the developments inside the urban services area, we stop them from being built out into the community, out farther. People say, well, I don't want any developments. Well, what happens is developers say that I want to build, I want my money. And if you're not going to let me do it inside the urban services area, then I may not be able to make as much money, but I can go out into the rural. I can buy 100 acres. At one point, at 6 acres per house, I can build 6 goes into 100, 20 times, 15, 18 times. I can go build 18 homes, tear down 100 acres of stuff, build 18 homes. Was that what we want? Do we want that? Or do we want those homes inside the urban services area? Well, if we want it inside the urban services area, then we need to be able to approve developments inside the urban services area. That's how you protect the rural environment. And you say, oh, you only got to go a mile that way, 2 miles that way, and you're out into rural Stafford. How great it is. Look at all this green space we have. Yeah, but look at 95. Well, who cares about what's 95, right? I buy close to 95 because I like the access. And I also work up north, and so I need the access. But I got friends of mine that live 5 miles the other way, and they totally love it. And they're like, keep it. If you're going to do it over there. Keep it away from me. And I'm all on board with that. Let's keep it in the urban services area where I have water and sewer, and I don't keep pushing it out into the rural areas. And Parks and Rec, don't get me started. According to our comp plan, we are hundreds of acres short on what is required by our comp plan for parks and recreation land. And again, I don't see a dedicated effort by our current board to minimize that and say, I'm going to go find spots that I can build a park. Now, I'm just not talking, a 1 acre run around the track park. I'm talking about trails and workout stations, a 50, 60, 70 acre park. Those types of things that we don't have enough of. Like I said, we're several hundred acres behind the requirement that's in our comp plan for parks and recreation land. And I don't see a big effort to fix that. And that would also be something that we would try to mitigate, try to work on, because if there's anything that we need, it's more recreational and more athletic opportunities for all ages, right? Not just for kids. Anyway, thank you.
All right, another question we have is, if you are elected, what would be your top priority for Stafford County? And what kind of a leadership would you bring to the Board of Supervisors?
All right, so the top priority that I would have would be to make sure that I have a good relationship with our school board. Our school board currently our representative, Dr. Young, has little to no relationship with the school board member. And that's tragedy, right? How many 7-on-7 over the last year, how many 7-on-7 meetings between the school board and the board of supervisors were canceled? What's the animosity that happens now between the school board and the board of supervisors? They get questioned. The school board gets questioned at every turn. They get held to what I see as a standard that's different than what they hold themselves to when it comes to spending money. And they don't really work. I mean, I know Chairman Diggs has tried hard to make it one Stafford. I totally think that's the right angle. But there are some who individually sit on our board of supervisors, and specifically our Garrisonville representative, that is somewhat hostile to the schools and to the board members, maybe not treating them the best way. She's called the school superintendent directly for things. She's called school staff, which seems to be a little out of line for a board member, from the board of supervisor member, to be calling school staff and requesting them to do things for her. It seems a little strange, and just adds to this bad relationship between the two when they're not working together. And that would probably be my number one priority. Then being accessible, transparent, what we do, and then being able to talk to constituents about leadership. Listen, I spent 25 years in the military. My last probably 10 in leadership positions. I know what I need to do. I know it needs to be done. I know when you put a plan together that if you have a 10-year plan, you also have to have a 5-year plan. And then you have to have a 3-year plan. And then you have to have a 2-year plan. And literally everything you do has to fit into the plan, so that when you get to 5 years, you don't think, oh, we're not even close. Oh, we're never going to meet 10 years now because we haven't done anything over the last 5 to get us there. And that's the thing that I would really focus on as well, is to make sure, as a leader, I work in the Coast Guard, right? I'm an acquisition manager for a large acquisition program. There are plans that have to be put in place. And then, as Mike Tyson was quoted as saying, everybody's plan is really good until you get hit in the face, right? And then you got to change your plan. Okay, let's change it. Well, let's modify it. Let's see what we need to do with the current now circumstances. But you have to have a plan, and you always have to be focusing on that plan. And I think over the last many years, we have made decisions that are outside the plans, or we've seen the plan. We know what the plan is. There's a 40-year, 2050, 2040 plan out there. Okay, so what are you doing today to make sure that plan comes to fruition? So anyway.
We're heading towards the end of our time together. So
Yes.
Are you running as an independent, a Republican, or a Democrat?
I'm running as an independent. I just received the endorsement of the Republican committee, but I'm running as an independent for a couple of reasons. But I think, as I tell people, politics at a local level is not left or right. It's right or wrong. And so it's what's best for the community. It's what's best for people. Not necessarily does it meet with a general or a national platform, right? We don't deal with those things. The national platforms have both right and left really big things. My focus is on, what is right for the county, being fiscally responsible, having a balanced budget, getting out of debt. Those types of things aren't right or left. They're not Republican and Democrat. They're much more in the middle. And so I want to talk to people in the middle, because I think that's where the big decisions are made. And so that's one of the reasons why.
I want to thank you for joining me today and helping me put the spotlight on our local Board of Supervisors candidate. For those who are watching, I'm Kelly Sienkowski with Potomac Local News, and stay tuned for the rest of our series.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it.